For over 140 years, one single secret formula has been the engine of a global empire. It's so much more than just a drink. It's a cultural icon, a symbol of America, and a corporate giant with a reach that's almost hard to wrap your head around. This is the story of how a backyard experiment in the post-Civil War South became, well, Coca-Cola. So let's dive in. To really get the scale of Coca-Cola, you have to start with this number: 1.9 billion. Now, that's not a year's revenue or something. That's how many servings of their drinks people consume every single day. It's a number so big it almost doesn't feel real, but it shows you just how woven into the fabric of the world this brand really is. Right, so that's the big question, isn't it? How on earth does that happen? How does a simple drink from a soda fountain, invented in Atlanta, turn into a global symbol of, well, everything? The answer is a wild ride of brilliant moves, a world-changing war, and one of the most legendary marketing blunders in history. Okay, so let's go back. The year is 1886 in Atlanta after the Civil War. We've got a pharmacist, Dr. John S. Pemberton, tinkering in his backyard with a three-legged brass kettle. Now, he wasn't trying to create a global brand. He was just trying to cook up a tonic for things like headaches and exhaustion. He was a problem solver, not an empire builder. And the beginnings were, well, they were almost comically small. In that first year, they were selling maybe 9 drinks a day, total. After Pemberton passed away, a savvy Atlanta businessman named Asa Candler saw something there. He bought the entire formula and company for just $2,300. But the real kicker on this timeline, the decision that would change everything, looks like a typo. In 1899, the rights to bottle Coca-Cola were sold for a single dollar. That $1 deal? It was a stroke of accidental genius. See, Candler didn't even think bottling had a future. He thought it was a fad. But that contract created what we now call the Coca-Cola system. The main company got to focus on making the secret high-profit syrup, and they basically outsourced all the hard, expensive stuff, the bottling, the trucks, the distribution, to a network of independent partners. It was a model for explosive growth before anyone even used terms like scalable. So with this system firing on all cylinders, the company grew like crazy. But it was under the leadership of a guy named Robert Woodruff in the 20th century that Coke went from being a big American brand to a true global icon. And the single biggest catalyst for that leap? World War II. This quote from Woodruff right here, this is one of the most important moments in the company's entire history. This wasn't just about patriotism, though it certainly looked that way. It was an absolutely masterful business strategy. By making Coca-Cola a symbol of home, a piece of America for the troops, Woodruff guaranteed that wherever the U.S. military went, Coke was going to be right there with them. And the commitment was just staggering. The company sent 148 of its own people to the front lines. They were nicknamed the Coca-Cola Colonels. Now, these guys weren't soldiers. They were engineers and logistics experts. They were given military ranks so they could operate in war zones, and their mission was to build bottling plants. The 64 plants they built during the war, those became the permanent foundation for Coke's post-war global conquest. But when you're on top of the world, new challenges pop up. By the 1980s, Coca-Cola was facing its first real threat, which led to a moment of sheer panic and what's now considered the marketing fiasco of the century. Welcome to the Cola Wars. For decades, Coke was the undisputed king. But then Pepsi, the scrappy challenger, came up with the Pepsi Challenge. You've probably seen it. It was this series of brilliant blind taste tests on TV, where again and again, people said they preferred the sweeter taste of Pepsi. All of a sudden, for the first time ever, the king was feeling the heat. And this is where they made their big gamble. In 1985, Coca-Cola did something nobody thought was possible. They threw out their secret formula, the one they'd used for 99 years. They launched New Coke and got rid of the original completely. The reaction wasn't just bad, it was a nationwide revolt. People were protesting, hoarding old Coke. The company completely misunderstood what they were selling. They thought it was a beverage. Consumers felt like they were losing a piece of their identity. The public backlash was so fast and so furious that it took less than 3 months for the company to cave. Just 79 days, that's it. They had to backtrack and bring back the original, which they cleverly rebranded as Coca-Cola Classic. It was a hugely embarrassing failure, but in a weird way, it ended up making people's emotional connection to the brand stronger than ever. So the whole New Coke disaster was a massive wake-up call. It taught the company a really valuable lesson. Depending on just one product, even an iconic one, was way too risky in a changing world. And that realization sparked another huge pivot. The new strategy was to become a total beverage company. The goal was simple: get a bigger share of your stomach. They wanted to have a drink for every person for every time of day. This is when you see them launch Diet Coke, buy Minute Maid, and push hard into sports drinks like Powerade, water, and even dairy and coffee. The mission was clear. Whatever you wanted to drink, they wanted to be the ones selling it to you. But, not every big swing is a home run. Their massive, and I mean $5.1 billion bet on Costa Coffee, which was supposed to be their grand entry into the global coffee shop market, really struggled. It just never quite took off the way they hoped, and a plan to sell it off in 2025 had to be scrapped when the offers were too low. It was a tough reminder that even for a giant like Coke, diversification is risky. And that brings us to today. After 140 years of twists and turns, the company is facing a whole new set of challenges, and you could argue they're more complicated than anything they've ever dealt with before. The battlegrounds today are completely different from the cola wars. Now, the company is under a microscope for health concerns around sugar. It's facing serious questions about its environmental footprint, from using up scarce water in places like India to the enormous global problem of plastic bottle waste. And on top of that, there's constant pressure over labor practices in its massive global supply chain. And right in the middle of all of this, a new chapter is about to start. As of March 2026, a new CEO is taking over, Enrique Braun, a guy who's been with the company for 30 years. His job is going to be defined by how he steers this massive ship through these very modern, very choppy waters. So it all boils down to this one big question. In a world that is more and more skeptical of sugary drinks and single-use plastics, can the company that basically defined 20th century business reinvent itself for the 21st? Can it adapt one more time? Or is it possible that the fizz that powered it for 140 years could finally go flat? That's the challenge for the next generation at Coca-Cola.